Okay, it is Plush Mini time. You might remember that I was very excited for these, and, well, my initial excitement is mostly still there. I ordered them the day that they were released, and they got here on December 4th. I guess they weren't ready when I first ordered them, considering I ordered the recent set of actual minis and they shipped like a millisecond later. I don't have those yet, but I will soon. So my first impression is that I do still like these a lot more than the normal plush. I like the direction of giving them big eyes, squished together faces, and little noses and mouths. But I do have a bit of disappointment in that all of these guys are just slight modifications on the same 2-ish vector faces, or 1.5 vector faces. It's actually really odd to me that they didn't put in the very slight amount of effort it would take to draw more faces on these guys. I don't know why they're all just modifications on the same pictures. You can literally embroider anything you want on this fabric, I know that much, so there's no real reason to repeat the face over and over again. And despite liking them, almost everything I dislike about them is rooted in these reused faces. I'll get more into it while I'm going over them as individuals. All of these guys are pretty soft, but as anticipated, the ones that don't have printed fur are softer and have slightly longer fuzz than the ones that do. The printing on them is generally pretty good, although it can get a bit patchy on the seams, which means hilariously that these plush minis also can be judged on seam quality in the same way that the earlier minis were. Although I haven't gotten a mini set with sharp seams in quite a while now. These guys are small, but not so small that they're impossible to hold on to and hug a little, especially not if you're a little kid. They're the kind of thing that can be carried around and taken places more easily than the bigger, more expensive, and uglier plush, and can more easily fit on the same shelf as your 10 dozen cat books. They all have cute little rounded tails and little stubby feet in their sitting poses, and it's cute. I like the little tails, I like the little stubby feet, I don't have any problems with this. So on to the individuals. First up is Scourge, who the website celebrates quite often. He's pretty much exactly the same as the advertised images, but mine has a bit of a pointy chin. I'm not sure if or not this is some sort of manufacturing situation or if I just got a weird looking Scourge, but I do know that it makes him look a little bit less cute than the nice round one in the promotional photos. Maybe I can squish him cuter with my hands. I do really like the face print on this one. I'm assuming that the first two that we saw, Firestar and Scourge, are the first ones that they designed because the facial proportions on them are superior to some of the later ones. The printed collar strip is funny, but not really something I care about too much, I guess. Like, I can see that, they tried, I guess, and I can tell that it's supposed to be Scourge's collar, but I'm not really sure what somebody completely unfamiliar with warrior cats would think looking at this. Scourge's collar doesn't look super good in the original mini, but the original mini is a lot cuter than the new mini, but the new mini has a better collar, and this plush mini's collar looks very silly. So if all you care about in your Scourge is a good-looking collar, get the second mini, the one that's bundled with Rusty. Although I feel like you can tell at this point that somebody on the design team is really upset they canonized the purple collar. Something else weird is that his whiskers are a different color than his facial features, and his facial features being a bit lighter is nice because it makes them easier to see on the black fur, but I couldn't even tell that he actually had whiskers at all at first. But that's really just a nitpick. All of these plushies have a symbol on their ear. His is completely blank but with a red outline, red for evil, I guess. Now on to Firestar. He's got a different stripe design here than he does in most of his past iterations. As I mentioned in the initial video, the kangaroo as seen from the front is not present on his forehead. He reminds me a bit more of the Roblox minifigures, but I think that has to do with the color of the fur they printed on. As I thought, the circle of fur around his mouth being embroidered is very distracting and adds a little bit too much detail to his otherwise simple face. I think now seeing the plush in person, they might have done this because there's very little contrast between the lighter orange counter shading fur and the normal orange they've chosen for the plush, but Likewise, Firestar has whiskers, but they're white, which looks a little bit weird on the tangerine-ish color of his fur. I am super thankful that this circle of fur around the mouth did not show up on any of the other plush. Because the stripes don't really go over the seams, they don't line up with each other on the legs and on the back. This isn't something that really bothers me a whole bunch, but it does lead to the plush looking a little bit cheaper. Something cute is that he has the lighter color orange on the bottom of his back feet along with his belly and the tip of his tail, which is something that they didn't really need to do, but is cute regardless. Every ThunderClan cat has a green ThunderClan logo on one of their ears, a lot like the larger plush have a green ThunderClan logo on one of their paws. The symbol and color are identical to the one on the squirrel plate that I have, Graystripe. My Graystripe is much cuter than the images of the Graystripe online, but that said, I'm pretty sure this is because mine's face is squished downwards and has a less rounded head, much like the Scourge I got, making the forehead larger and the mouth smaller. Unlike Scourge and Firestar, Graystripe has no tooth. His face seems to be a modified version of Firestar's face, where they skewed the eyes to be taller and wider and have bigger pupils, but they left the proportions about the same. Likewise, his mouth looks like it was simply stretched downwards without any real thought. This makes the eyes look a bit off and unfocused compared to Firestar, on some level because instead of looking forward and determined, his pupils are more towards the middle of his eyes, staring blankly into space, and this stretches out the previously tiny eye shine to be more glassy and further from the edge of the pupil. I really hope that if they're going to keep skewing the shapes of the existing eyes going forward instead of just drawing new ones, they don't keep skewing the pupil alongside it. Graystripe does have a unique facial feature though, a third whisker. Maybe I can determine the timeline of when these were created and edited from each other based on how many whiskers that they have and if or not the tooth has been removed. Design-wise, there is something a bit weird about this Graystripe, and that's that he's short-haired. I mean, he has like a little bit of fur on top of his head that I barely even noticed, but there's an implication that all of these plush are short-haired. Well, besides Ravenpaw, of all cats. I honestly wouldn't even think twice about this. But Ravenpaw, for whatever reason, has fluffy cheeks, and Graystripe, the one cat who is actually long-haired out of all of these characters, does not. You may be a bit confused by this considering fandom, wiki, and website depictions of the characters, but there are actually very, very few canonically long-haired cats and warrior cats, and Graystripe is one of them. This is a detail I actually like about the books. It makes the trait more unique. If every cat is long-furred, no cat is. Considering what is supposed to stand out about Graystripe is his gray stripe, I think there's a little bit too much contrast between the counter shading and the normal fur. But as long as he still has the gray stripe, I'm fine with that. Graystripe definitely isn't the worst of these, but he's not really my favorite either. He's just a little bit weird between the warped face and the whole not being fluffy thing. Now on to Ravenpaw. Ravenpaw is similar to Graystripe in that his face looks to be the same general image as Scourge's face, but with the features stretched out. It's pretty cute, but the mouth is a little bit low on the head compared to cats like Scourge and Firestar. Making the pupils a bit bigger has worked in his favor, but really only because they're not dipping down as far as the ones on Brightheart and Graystripe. Overall, I like him best, I think, between being softer and a solid color and looking passable. But it's a bit funny considering the best looking mini, in my opinion, is the original Ravenpaw. While this isn't exactly the kind of expression fans would give Ravenpaw, I can see the team giving it to him, but I know that the real reason he looks like this is because it's just Scourge's face. It's just Scourge's face stretched out. He has some fluffy-ish cheek fur, which isn't new to him in mini form, unless you count the Roblox mini, who is mysteriously very bald. He also has a blank symbol like Scourge, but his is green. Good, or maybe because he used to be in ThunderClan, I have no idea. And here we have Brightheart. She has the usual design for her missing eye, the same one that's on the minis, the same one that's on her big plush, so I'm not really gonna worry too much about how that looks. It's just like all the other minis and all the other plush and all the other Brightheart stuff. Her remaining eye is really stretched out and empty looking. It's Graystripe's eye, but it's been made wider, the pupil, and while I greatly appreciate some bigger, less thin pupils, the fact that it's just the existing eye pattern but dragged out is very obvious. The highlight has been stretched so far that it almost looks like it's an oval shape. But oval shapes are kind of the problem. I want the eyes to be round. If they're gonna have cute, big pupils, I want them to have round pupils, not big, long, oval pupils. It's just less cute. Likewise, her mouth is dipping down quite a bit and isn't as centered on the face as cats like Firestar and Scourge, making her look a bit Disappointed? Disappointed in me? Disappointed in you? Maybe she just learned that she's retiring without getting a real apprentice. It seems that as they made eyes bigger on characters, they moved the mouths lower and lower on the faces to compensate for how far down they were dipping the eyes. This makes me wonder if the later Tigerstar mouth problem is related to them just reusing the same templates over and over again. Brightheart is also printed to be covered in scars, which resembles the mini, although they could have spent a little bit more time on her lighter over eye scars and back, where it really looks like they made them too hastily and left in lots of rounded edges, which doesn't really look like slash marks anymore. She is also the plush where the seams of the printed fabric are the most obvious, likely because, unlike the others, her coloration was printed over a white color. I also think she would look a little bit better if some of the stripes from her head were also on her tail or back, but she's fine pattern-wise. And last, we have the one that certainly looks the weirdest to me, Tigerstar, the first. Tiger Claw Star, you could say. Now, his pattern, his counter shading, his fur, it's all fine. I think it's cute, and they have a good handle on making him look like a tabby cat here. The stripes look fine, and the color of the fur is dark, so you can't really tell where the seams are messing up. In fact, if it were for all of the other areas except for the face, this would be my favorite plush out of the lot. I like Tigerstar's body and Tigerstar's design best out of all of them, but the face is very, very weird. So for every other cat, no matter what, the nose is starting somewhere before the eyes are ending. This was a good choice because it makes them look cute, but Tigerstar's mouth is starting almost a full centimeter under his eyes. And it looks so strange, especially next to the other cuter plush. Like, just move it up a little, please, somebody. His eyes look basically identical to Scourge's, both in angle and pupil, but his mouth, which is almost certainly the same mouth that Firestar has, based on the smirk, is stretched downwards a bit, and falling off his face almost. I can imagine that it was possible that this was done to allow for separation between the color of the muzzle and the dark brown of his fur, but does it really need that much room? Especially considering the muzzle on Firestar literally has a patch of other colored fur around it that's much closer, and the scar right above Tigerstar's nose is also much closer to the seam than his nose is. And on the promotional material, it's almost right on top of it compared to my plush. So his face is just really, really weird compared to everyone else's face, and not very pretty, but I guess it's Tigerstar. I can let Tigerstar be ugly. I would be much more upset if it was a cat that, wasn't Tigerstar. But, the look on the big, handsome cat's face was whatever. Tigerstar is the only mini to be utilizing the printed mask thing, the embroidered mask thing that they do with the larger plushies. I don't have any real opinion on this, but I think I prefer the eyes to be separate from the markings just ever so slightly, especially seeing as these big printed masks are, hard chunks on top of an otherwise soft plush. He also has a blue Shadow Clan symbol. Blue for what? Huh? I also recently got myself a Dovewing colored Chihuahua plushie, and her Shadow Clan symbol is red for evil. What's up with that? Are these not actually consistent? I always just made the assumption that they were. It matches the color of the face in his tag, and in Dovewing's tag, but Dovewing has a red one. And also Dovewing's is fully colored in, like between the ears, which is very, very ugly. Even compared to the way that these symbols usually look. I guess we've never had any other plush Shadow Clan though, so maybe the red symbol Dovewing has is just a mistake. Either way, Tigerstar is probably the plush I feel the most mixed on. Well, actually, I think we had like a plush mini head of Tigerstar, didn't we? I have no idea if those had symbols or not. They were very, very ugly, you guys. I did not buy them. Either way, despite any nitpicks or problems that I have, I think that these guys are actually very cute. They're much, much better looking than, say, the Dovewing colored Chihuahua. As far as we go, going forward, I'm anticipating J-Feather no matter what next, for sure, but maybe it'll surprise me. They probably have stats as to which of their toys are selling out the fastest, but the ones that I'm most interested in will always be Dovewing and Squirrelflight. Considering how many minis there are that don't have plush, and how they only focused on the Prophecies Begin characters here, there is both too much and too little information to speculate on. I think that these things are conceptually really, really strong, but need a little bit more attention paid to their faces by the designer instead of just reusing the same one stretched in different directions 6 times. But they're cute. They have a nice balance of detail in that they're not like super, super over detailed like the minis that have too many cuts, and I like them. I enjoy them. I'm going to put them next to my books. You'll probably see me again soon talking about Wave 8 of the real minis, so stay tuned for that, I guess.